Someone just asked where the recordings will be posted. We will be editing the recordings and then we post them on our website. And by our, I guess I should have probably introduced myself. My name is Christina and I work in the academic and career planning office at Barron. So the ACPC is what we are often known as, those 4 letters. So the ACPC website has a list of pre-recorded, we call them like webinars, but they're not exactly pre-recorded sessions like this on different topics. And that is where the recordings will be hosted. So they will be on our website. So just wanted to let everyone know that it is recording. Also, if you are here because you get points for a class for attending these workshops, we will be able to pull the attendance list at the end of we can track who came to the meeting, we pull that list at the end, and we send that to professors who give those points to students. I do want to caution you though, if your name does not appear, like your name that's on the class roster is not what shows here on Zoom, you may need to put in additional effort to let your faculty know that you attended, because I see someone is using their iPhone to attend, so we don't know exactly who that person is. But we will give a list of all the attendees to the professor. I know some students also do have to take a screenshot, so I just wanted to let you know all of that up front. And I would like to let everyone know that this is being recorded, since we do have some people that are continuing to pop in. But we can go ahead and get started now that I've got the boring content out of the way. We can get into hopefully what is more interesting content about professional communication. So I will be sharing my screen and going through some slides with you today. And if you do have questions, chat is probably the easiest way to put those questions in, but you can also ask out loud with your microphone too. Let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize the other little bar here. Okay. So I want to start with this slide, just letting you know what the topic is and today's date so that you know you're at the right place for the right presentation, hopefully. So let's dive into the basics. So this presentation was described as going, if you read the description, it was described as going over emails, phone calls, voicemails, and basically any professional communication that you would have with a potential employer. So I use the term potential specifically because it could be communication with a current supervisor, it could be with a faculty member, it could be with someone you meet at a career fair, a family friend, a neighbor. It doesn't really matter who the person is, but how you communicate professionally with that person. So the first of those 3 things that we're going to dive into, those 3 things being email, phone call, voicemail. Obviously phone and voicemail are more related, so we'll keep those together. But we're going to start with emails because I am sure that all of you experience getting a ton of emails every day. So how do you make those emails professional and appropriate? Some of the topics are like the basics of an email. An email just has a subject in it. There's a greeting and a salutation. There should be a greeting and salutation. In the real world, you wouldn't just walk up to someone and start demanding advice without saying hello first. So you want to use that same concept in an email. A salutation, which is the goodbye. So again, you don't just walk away from people, hopefully, without saying goodbye to them or saying some kind of leaving message. There's also email signatures. I'm sure that many of you have seen these. You might have one yourself. There's both signatures that can be set up for your desktop and for your mobile. And then also the other note that I have here is Gmail is the preferred account aside from your Penn State email. So if any of you are a senior right now, graduating this May or even in December 2021, that's when you would want to start switching to using a professional Gmail account. Your Penn State email will last after graduation. for a couple of months, but you don't want to lose any contacts, any people's names or emails that you may have sent by not having access to that anymore. So it's appropriate once you are a senior and you're in your final 2 semesters to start switching over to a Gmail. So switching over would mean put that on your resume, put it on any of your documents that you give to anyone, and use that as your primary communication. Gmail is considered to be the most professional and modern option. Yahoo and Hotmail and other things can make you look dated. I recently learned that myself by attending a webinar, so it's really preferred that you set up a Gmail account that doesn't, and the email address should contain your name and not your birth date. I know I see a lot of student emails where it's like first name, last name, and then 1998. And it's like, well, now we all know when you were born and therefore how old you are. So I encourage you to create that account that does not give away your birth date. So just your name is good. And then if you have to add some numbers, just pick something that's not your birthday. So I wanted to touch on that. Now, oops, you'll see here that there are some sample what are those called? Signatures at the bottom of this slide. The one on the left that's in kind of a gray font is an example of what you could use for a mobile device. So many smartphones come with that default sent from my iPhone or sent from my Samsung, whatever. You want to change that because it's not very professional. We don't really care what kind of phone you have, but you also will probably be in a situation where you do have to send important emails from your phone. And so it would be easier if you are able to indicate to someone, yes, I'm on my phone. So there may be some additional typos. I know sometimes my phone will autocorrect someone's name, which is always frustrating. So it's good to let them know that you sent it from a mobile device. We just don't really care what device it is. And then you do want to provide details that make sense. In this example on the bottom left of the slide, the details are a mobile phone number, an office phone. As a student, you probably don't have an office phone, which is totally fine. You would put your general phone number, which is most likely your cell phone. You actually do want to type your email into your signature because you don't want people to have to kind of search, especially if you're on mobile. Sometimes the way it shrinks the screen, it's hard to see what the email is. So you want to put it down there so it's really easy for people to see it. And then if you have any other information that's relevant, if you wanted to include, that would be where you would want to include it. The sample on the bottom right of the slide, at least I think it's right. I don't know if it'll be reversed for you via Zoom, but the sample that has more color to it, it's right above the Penn State logo on the slide. That sample with the student named Dustin is more appropriate for a desktop. So you can go into your settings on your email and change your signature. Again, it includes name, it includes just some general info. So in this sample, they include that they're a student, the name of their college. They also have this really nice little LinkedIn button. They also have a Twitter account. Obviously, you do not need to include that if you don't want to. This is just a sample. And then you can see they also clearly spell out their phone number and their email. So you don't have to do as much fancy formatting. You know, their name is in a colored font. They've got some like more aesthetically pleasing formatting. That's not as important as what you're including. The content is what we really want to see. That way it's so much easier when you receive an email, people know, oh, I know exactly who this is from and I know who they are. So I do encourage you to set up those signatures on both your mobile and your desktop. I also want to talk about greetings and salutations. We'll talk about that when I show you some actual examples on the next few slides, but the subject line is also just as important. Subject lines should never be left blank. You always want to put a subject in, especially if you're sending an email for any of these reasons. If it's a networking outreach, thank you for an interview, a career fair or job application follow-up message. If you're requesting information about an internship or other opportunity, you definitely need a subject to let people know what on earth you're asking them. Subject lines should not be like clickbait. You know, you don't need to write like urgent opportunity or something in there. Really just make it about what you're asking. So you might be saying follow up on such and such job application, or thank you for talking to me at the Barron Career Fair. Really just let people know why you're emailing them so that they can know why to open your message. So as I mentioned, the next few slides are going to have some screenshots, some examples of some different emails that you might be sending. Some good samples to go by here. I know they're a little fuzzy. I apologize for that. Hopefully you can still read them. But the one on the left in the darker black font, it says, "Dear Miss Jane," these are examples of thank yous. "Thank you for your time yesterday. It was a pleasure meeting you and learning about this company's name," and whatever else you talked about. And then just, this is a thank you for a job interview. And then you're just really reiterating in this thank you what makes you a good candidate. So I believe my experience and skills would be an asset to this company and I'll perform well in this position. And then thank you for sharing invaluable insights. I look forward to hearing from you soon. And then they just use regards as their salutation and then their name. So this is a great example of what kind of follow-up you would send after an interview. That interview can be for a full-time job or an internship or a research position. Anytime you're interviewed for anything, even a leadership role on campus in a club or organization, it's a good idea to send a thank you. That'll really hopefully boost you above other applicants that do not send a thank you. And this is a good example. It is very short. It is very professional in tone, but it still includes some specific things. It includes the name of the company. It includes, like I said, another pitch as to why you are a great candidate. So my experience and skills would be a good asset for this. And then it ends politely. The thank you on the other side of the screen that's in a lighter colored font is more, they categorize it as expressing appreciation and building a relationship. This is more a thank you for someone that maybe did something for you. So in this example, it's thanking someone that came and spoke to a biology club. So maybe you would send this if you are in a club or organization and someone does come to your club or organization and volunteers their time, you would want to send a thank you message. Or you could also do this perhaps if someone, if you did a mock, or not a mock interview, an informational interview with an employer, or if you had a networking conversation and you just want to thank them for their time. This would be an example of where you might use this. This actually does include the subject message. The subject is "thank you for your talk and time." As you can see, subject's pretty straight to the point. This person was a professor, so their title, "Dear Professor Washington, I hope this email finds you well." You may have seen memes on the internet about that phrase, "I hope this email finds you well." It's not a bad thing to include. It's really just kind of easing into that conversation. Like in the real world, you don't walk up to people and just start berating them with questions or statements. And so this is kind of a way to ease in. So if it makes you feel more comfortable, include it. If you think it sounds cheesy and you've seen memes about it, then don't include it. It's really okay either way on that. You want emails to still sound genuine so you can make, decisions like that. Then they get straight to the point though. "I'm reaching out to thank you for talking to our biology club about your research. We all found it fascinating. I really appreciated how you stayed longer than planned to answer all our questions. I was especially interested in what you said about this research having the potential to translate to other areas of the body. I'm planning on enrolling in this class next semester. I look forward to hearing about these concepts more in depth." So a very polite, very professional follow-up message. They ended as a salutation. They wrote "thanks again" and then their name. So if you were following up with a networking contact, you might say that you were especially interested in what they said about blank. Obviously, you probably wouldn't be taking their class, but you might say something like, "I plan to put your advice to use," and end the message that way. So another type of email that you might send in addition to thank yous would be kind of requests for information about internships. I'm using the example internships, but you can replace that with jobs, full-time jobs. It's very interchangeable. So while these samples are for internships, that doesn't mean that they can't be used for other types of requests like jobs or graduate assistant positions, something like that. So there's a lot of content on this page. So we're going to start with the one that's right under the big header that says internship. It says, "Good morning, Miss Lively." I'm not really sure about that name, but we'll say that that's what it is. This person explains who they are. Starts the email by saying, "My name is Sydney, student, and I am an upcoming graduate of Hastings High School." This can be applied to a college student as well. So someone here might say that their name and then that they are a current junior at Penn State Behrend. Then they explain, I learned of the library's summer internship program from a poster during my recent visit to the library. So they're telling the person where they found the information. Did you see it, posted somewhere? Did someone mention it to you? How did you learn about what you're emailing about? And then the next part, I'm emailing to find out more information about how to apply. And they take another step to attach their resume and say they're happy to provide any additional information. I hope to hear from you soon about those internship opportunities at the library. And then they end sincerely, their name, and you can see that they have a phone number and email. So a really, really brief signature, which is totally fine. All you need is that minimal content. This is a great request email. So if you hear, maybe a friend or faculty member tells you about an internship, or you see something maybe posted online somewhere, but it's not like a full description and you need more information, this would be a perfectly appropriate email to send to get more information and show that you're interested in that position. Other times, a job application might ask you to send your materials via email. Instead of applying, through some kind of platform online, they just want an email. In that case, this would be an appropriate email to send with your attached application. So if we go to the next example, which is in the bottom, it says, Dear Miss Baker, then it explains again who you are. My name is Jane Davis, and I am a MPH candidate at the University of Illinois at Chicago School of Public Health. So they're letting them know who they are, what they're studying, and where they go to school. I'm pursuing concentration in global health, and I worked with UNICEF as a volunteer. This sentence gives the person a little bit more info about your background. So you might say that you are pursuing a career in marketing and that you have past work experience in retail sales. Just giving them kind of a snapshot of what other things you bring to the table. This person then goes on to say, I wanted to reach out to you to discuss the possibility of completing an internship with your organization this summer, working on the Global Health Initiative. This email is a really great example because a lot of times companies don't necessarily have an internship opening posted for you to submit an application, but they might be open to having an intern at their organization. So this is an exact example of how you would kind of request, does your organization want to consider me as an intern? Then the next paragraph says, I know you are very busy, but I would love to talk to you briefly, I think the word you is missing, about the opportunities that might be available at your organization. I'm more than willing to accommodate your schedule. Please let me know when you are available. So again, this person is politely saying that they want to have a longer conversation about internship opportunities. This might be appropriate for people that reach out to organizations that don't have internships publicly advertised, but they might have them in general. And then again, it leaves with thank you for your time. You're always overthanking people because you want to be as polite as possible. Sincerely, your name. And then this person also, again, clarifies where they go to school and like what they're studying. So you can really imagine how you would apply this to your situation. And then the last example, which has the darkest font, this is the longest one. This is actually almost like a cover letter. This was written in cover letter formatting, and I kind of cropped that part out to show you how you could then just put this in an email message. So this is appropriate for when you are submitting an application, particularly for maybe an internship or a job where you don't need a cover letter because maybe the job posting wasn't clear on if they wanted one. Maybe you're sending this to a friend at the company and they're going to send it to someone else. And so a cover letter could get lost in that translation of people. So really what this does is takes the cover letter and kind of just sticks it in the email body. So instead of putting it in a document and attaching it, you're just typing it straight into that email. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to use these exact phrases or format, but you can take this and adapt it to whatever your particular situation is. I won't read this one because it's obviously a lot longer, but I also want to make sure that we get on to the next set of examples during our time today. Another kind of email you probably will send is some kind of follow-up. So follow-up after a job interview, follow-up after a career fair. It's a little different than a thank you. It's really more of just, it's like a combination of thank you, but also I need more details or I need more info. So the one on the left is a example of a follow-up when you have not heard back from a job. So basically the employer has ghosted you and you'd like to know what's happening. This was the appropriate first follow-up. So this is definitely a little more casual. You can see that they started with hi instead of like good morning or dear or hello. So it's a little more casual. So I'm not sure I love that about this example, but it is a good example to show how you would reach out to someone um, after an interview. So hope you're having a great week. Wanted to send a quick note to say that I really enjoyed meeting everyone at this company, really enjoyed discussing this role, this project. I'm excited about the role and think I'd be a good fit. Are there any updates on the position? It's appropriate to reach out if you haven't heard anything for a week, even 2 weeks, depending on what the person said at the end of your interview. The follow-up on the right is a little bit closer to what you might do after a job fair. So we met at this job fair. They're saying, we know your inbox is probably busy, but I wanted to say thank you for talking to me today. Again, I don't love the tone. I think the one on the left is a little casual. The other one, the one I'm talking about now, is a little too formal. So maybe in between the two. But it's another good example that shows how you can give some details. So as I mentioned, I'd be excited to get a chance to interview for this position. They even talk about how they think their hard and soft skills would be a good fit. And then that their specific experience would come in handy. This is, again, almost like a mini cover letter in an email body. And then you can see that they all just signed their name. So you can see that there were a variety of salutations at the bottom, like these ones say all the best or just best. I think this one said sincerely. My go-to is sincerely. No one's going to be offended by that. Regards is fine. The other thing is the greeting at the top. A lot of these say dear so-and-so, dear whoever it is. This one says good morning. I like to go with good morning or good afternoon. A colleague taught me this trick at my former job and I really like it. Sometimes dear so-and-so is a little too formal, but hi or hello sounds a little too casual. So a nice in-between is to say good morning or good afternoon. And then the person's name. All right. I also typed some examples of a networking or outreach email. A lot of you have probably, if you've met with any career person, they've probably told you that you need to network and reach out to people. And so I've got these two examples here about how you would maybe reach out on LinkedIn. So the top one's shorter, and then the second one is a little bit longer. So especially if you're using Lion Link and you're finding alumni that you want to reach out to, this is an example of what you might include. It's very similar to what we've talked about. You want to start with your name. You're a student at Penn State. What are you studying? Tell them how you got their information. People want to know how you got their email address, particularly. Like I found your email on Lion Link. I got it from a friend, professor, faculty member. You got to tell them where you found the information so that you seem not creepy and that it's appropriate. And then you want to let them, this bottom one is kind of like if you wanted to talk to them about their current role. So I want to find out more about your current role. So these, I think I can send these slides out afterwards for some of these examples to be more accessible to you. That was my plan once we have the list of attendees. So I will be sending those to you. So since this is a presentation where you kind of need to see the examples, right? I'm going to skip through these so that we can get to some other tips. This is something I see circulated on social media a lot. Stop over apologizing in emails. So if someone says, here's a mistake you made, instead of saying, oh, sorry, here are some alternatives, like, thanks for catching that, I'll make the changes. Something that I've learned to incorporate in my daily life is thank you for your patience waiting for my reply, as opposed to saying, sorry for my delayed reply. And then phone calls, much shorter than emails. The key here is to make sure you have your voicemail set up on your cell phone. A lot of people don't set up voicemail anymore. It's very frustrating. Set up your voicemail, include your full name, make sure there's no weird sounds in the background. Listen to someone's voicemail that they leave you before you return their phone call. It's very frustrating when someone calls back and is like, oh, I didn't listen to your message. So now I have to tell you everything that I told you in that message. So this is something that actually my the person that hired me here at Barron was very strict about this. She told me to make sure I include this in this presentation because she contacted me during the interview process over the phone. And so that was the only person who did that during my job search. And so I wanted to make sure that it does happen, to tell you that people do use the phone still. It's not all email. And so you want to make sure that you listen to those voicemails before returning calls. And please make sure your voicemail is not full. You have to delete your old messages during your job search to make sure that people can continue leaving messages for you. There's a really simple example here for what you might say when you set up your voicemail. Really just giving your name so that we know that we reached the right person. A lot of times students will ask about accepting or getting a job offer over the phone. So I did include some information about that. You want to make sure that you thank the employer, tell them you're very excited you received an offer of employment. While on the phone, you really want to get them to send you stuff in writing. Ask about any deadlines. If they have not mentioned salary or benefits, ask them when they plan to follow up by email with more details. If they do mention salary, benefits, or anything else on the call, still ask them to email you that information so you can review it and then follow up with any questions. It's definitely important to see the content in writing first before you make a decision. And this offer phone call is not the time you want to negotiate your salary. That comes later. Okay, so that was all that I wanted to present today. Like I said, I know some of these slides probably have helpful examples, so I do want to send those to you. I also want to bring up our virtual drop-ins are Tuesday through Friday, 12 to 4. And if you want to screenshot that slide, you can check out the meeting ID and attend those drop-ins. You can do it right now if you've got free time or have questions and you want some additional help. So I'll leave that up for just another moment, but I do want to know if anyone has current questions, you can go ahead and type them in chat, or if you do have the option to unmute yourselves, go ahead and do so and ask away. And I'm also going to go ahead and stop the recording as well.